I really want to make this conversation about, well, how did the media get it so wrong? And there's a really good article in Politico that like sort of touches on this, and what it demonstrates is that there is a bubble in media. There is an urban, like the data. I'm sorry, the article itself talks about the urban bubble, right? That media, both internet media, new media, actually, for lack of a better term. So again, HuffPo, Daily Beast, etc., and old media are concentrated in what was essentially 16 counties in America, and they just happen to be urban coastal cities. And that not only that, but 93% of everyone who works in media identifies as Democrat. And so it's not hard to understand how these meetings, these office spaces, these social circles that are responsible for producing 90% plus of our news became an echo chamber that you could only hear how Clinton was going to win, because everyone who was working there, they only knew people who were voting for Clinton. And that's inherently problematic. It's inherently problematic. Oh, go ahead.
I think it really comes down to this, though. I mean, the fact of the matter is, at least in this country, the media the media creates these narratives. You're right, and a lot of times the media feels they have the ability to shape elections in any which way they want. And so there's this idea that if you're a Democrat and you watch only Democratic news, well then, or you're someone who only watches like MSNBC, quote unquote left leaning, even though still to the right, if you watch this quote unquote left leaning news, you're going to vote Democrat. Like that's just what they're told. And if you're told, well, if you watch Fox News, then it's this. So there's this tendency for a lot of people to just shove everything onto the media. But I think the media really kind of misconstrues their own power. The media thinks they have the ability to shape the election because the people that watch those channels do tend to follow along those lines. And so the media got kind of full of itself, to be quite honest with you. And you're right, they're located in quote unquote liberal coastal cities.
I want to push back on you right there. I want to push because I don't think and so I agree with you halfway. But what I think is more likely the situation going on is that they think they're reporting the news. They think they have some kind of, they have their finger on the pulse of America. But they, like you said, they don't understand that they're making the news. They're constructing reality.
I think they do too. And I'll use Matt Taibbi's interview from Chapo, where he starts it off saying like one of the big things that they missed was they always felt like in previous elections, especially using the Howard Dean Scream example, the media is the kingmaker. And whenever there's a gaffe, whenever there's some sort of thing, they all step in and they craft a narrative. And it's like 3 weeks of this candidate doing this horrible thing, and then the candidate apologizes, then they quietly slip into the background, and it's the media that does that. And Trump just never did. No matter what screw up he had, he never apologized. He's just like, yeah, congrats to you. You got nothing. I don't care what you say about me. My people don't care what you say about me. How many times did you see like real live fact checking in a chyron of Trump lying? Like Trump is saying something live, and then underneath it says this is not true. And that didn't matter. It didn't matter to Trump. It didn't matter to his voters.
Well, I think there's one thing I think that's really important that I think we should touch on quickly, if you give me a moment, is that there was already this idea that Hillary was going to win before the election even started. Before anybody names was announced, before anybody even declared that they were running, people kind of already presumed, well, Republicans are ridiculous, racist jerks. There's no way they're going to win a national election as long as they keep approaching things from that perspective. And, all we need is a decent Democrat that'll be able to go in there and just point out how ridiculously bad Republicans and their policy are, and they'll walk away with it, win by 10, 20 points. And Trump versus Hillary fit that pre-existing narrative particularly within the Democratic strongholds so well that people easily glommed onto the idea. It's like, oh yeah, sure, Hillary wins this, Trump loses by a landslide because America's not racist, right? I mean, it's kind of racist, but it's not really that racist. I mean, definitely not the liberals, and definitely not white women. They're not racist or economically motivated enough, or whatever the however you want to attribute people for voting for Trump, but that whatever it is, they don't see things similarly enough to Trump that he could ever possibly win. And then we ended up with Hillary losing the white women vote.
Well, here's real quick, because I want to go back and I want to hit back on a point that you argued with me. And here's the thing: the media does know that they're creating this narrative, and I've seen it from the inside because they look for the people that fit their narrative. And not only do they do that, so again in Philadelphia, there was there was cameras and news folks and reporters everywhere, but they refused to talk to you unless you fit this very particular narrative that they wanted to have. And that was Hillary people are great, they're diverse, and everyone loves her. And Bernie people are white males, that millennials in their early 20s who are sexist assholes. And that's what they tried to put on TV, and that's what they did put on TV. When I was there and I was talking about these media folks and trying to get interviews as a person in the media myself, and going around and talking to folks and saying, hey, here's this info that we're seeing, here's this info that we're doing. Even the media tent coverage was abysmal. The framing of it was whiny Bernie people.
Yeah.
That's what they did the entirety of the election. So they framed it the way they wanted to. They made the news. And you see this even further in the collusion between reporters and the Clinton campaign, saying, I will write a fluff piece for Hillary Clinton. They know what they're doing, and to say that they're not is disingenuous at best.
So I don't think
to back up his claim about the DNC, you go outside and you look at what they were covering in the protest, and there were cameras all over the flower people who were sitting in front of the fences, and none talking to the BLM marchers or any of the other people who are organized who are outside talking. And they were close-ups on these people, making the protesters look ridiculous, when in fact most of them were there who were hardworking people who were concerned about what was going on inside, when delegates were not being allowed to walk outside the fence and were very vocal about it. And
don't get me wrong.
We were crowded. There was police presence. There was Secret Service. There was this incredible collusion of the Clinton campaign, the media, and then even law enforcement at times to get the narrative that they wanted. You didn't hear about a lot of things going on in FDR Park on places like CNN. A lot of the stuff I was streaming from the floor for Project Sanity and Progressive Army, people watching those streams were commenting, this isn't on TV. The TV, the media reality was that the arena was packed, everyone loved Hillary, and it was all kumbaya, hugs, and kisses.
I remember the reports of the noise machines and like various other things to detract from the dismay that was going on there. Go ahead.
So I guess maybe I framed that wrong. I don't necessarily think that they're not doing it on purpose, because as you have all pointed out, there are definitely instances where the media was purposefully burying their head in the sand. And so not only the instances you gave, but we've in the aftermath from listening to people like Josh Fox, listening to people like Susan Sarandon, and listening to like a myriad of Bernie surrogate supporters, we know that they were basically blackballed, blacklisted, banned from certain platforms, as MSNBC being, and all of it, Chris Hayes being one of them. And so like there's definitely this era of, well, we're just not going to listen to these people. But I think a lot of it is facilitated by the fact that there is is facilitated by the demographics of not only the liberal media, and I call it the liberal media not necessarily because media industry is liberal, because it's obviously very pro-corporate, but because of the fact that like the rank and file of media organizations are made up of liberals. Like they're made up of of elite liberals. And so in criticizing how the media missed this, right? They viewed Trump as a circus sideshow, because he didn't appeal to anyone in their social circle. And not only anyone who was working with them, but anyone who they knew in their personal lives. But that just means they're out of touch. And in saying that the liberal media, again, the demographics of the media are liberal, not necessarily their goals, is out of touch, is a direct condemnation of the Democratic Party, because they go hand in hand. Like as we saw with the various leaks, there is an incestuous nature between liberals in the media and the Democratic Party that only serves to facilitate that insular groupthink, right? The fact that they could not see it coming because they didn't bother to ask anyone. But when I will say this, as we transition to talking about how this that implicates Democrats and Democratic Party being out of touch, which again they are. This is like what makes it very easy for Democratic Party to be out of touch, and what makes it very easy, I would say, for liberal media to be out of touch as well, and is that they represent a horizontal slice of society, right? It's like they are better able to project the illusion of diversity in their party and in their workspaces. And you see this with pictures, you see this with pictures coming out of HuffPo editorial staff, pictures coming out of any of these places where they're not monochromatic in the same way you would say. I don't know, Trump's cabinet is monochromatic or monogender, but they are in fact monoclass. They represent one specific class of society, one specific ideological subsect of society, and but because of the fact that they have lots, we have a bunch of black people, we have a bunch of women, we elevate LGBTQ people, they're able to project this air of, well, we're actually very diverse and we represent everybody. Like we're having these diverse conversations, if that makes sense. The liberal media is able to be, by nature of being like a rainbow of colors and creeds and genders and religions, are able to very easily convince themselves that they're having a complete conversation. But what never seems to get brought up is, I don't know, class really, but also just like the people who are left, the identities that are left out of this conversation that they're having.
That's, again, it goes to shaping what the narrative is. And if you watch the news and you get your news solely from sources like MSNBC, and again, we're just going to keep it with the liberal side, what you see is what you tend to believe life is representative of, because that's the narrative that they paint. And I mean, Dems in touch, because that's kind of the whole game plan, right? Like if you look at the Democratic game plan and you look at the liberal media game plan, it's kind of the same thing. It's this idea of that wide tent, because that wide tent is what makes them money. That ability to quote unquote attract everybody is how they make the most funds.
Yes.
And that's simply what it is. And then in the media, you can play off ratings, you can play off and use the hatred of Fox News or the fact that they're basically just a bunch of, salacious jerks to draw more viewers, because then you can paint yourself, also see me, look at, I'm the nice centrist. And that's what the Democratic Party does. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, all that either of them care about is money.